Hello, everybody!
And welcome back to Crit and Crit. I am Axion.
And I'm Sint.
And we are continuing playing through Pokemon Christmas and discussing Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol.
Today's topic will be our good old buddy, Marley, who is kind of the instigator of the entire actual plot. Without Marley, we would just have Scrooge sitting in the dark. Oh, it's a Vulpix! Can we get the Vulpix? It's pretty!
Why would we need a Vulpix?
Because I want to pet it.
We'll catch it, but probably not going to put it in the team. Anyway, you were saying?
I was saying Vulpix is cute.
Before that, Marley.
Okay, right. Without Marley, we just have a sad, grumpy old man having a boring Christmas in his boring house where nobody likes him because he drives everyone away. But Marley's arrival is the catalyst for the entire plot.
Yep. And as the book has gone out of its way to emphasize, everything about Marley's appearance is supernatural. Begins with the transformation of Scrooge's door knocker into Marley's face, followed by some odd happenings inside the house, including, among other things, the alert bell that would be connected to whatever system is used to communicate from room to room within the full structure of Scrooge's home building, suddenly going off on its own and quite loudly for a while before it just stops at nowhere, and then of course the actual manifestation of Marley's spirit. And Scrooge is not exactly sure at first how to respond to the sudden appearance of this being before him.
Yeah, and it's just great because, right up until the moment he sees Marley's face, he's just yelling, "Humbug, it's not real," at the entire thing. So, just humbug, said Scrooge and walked across the room. He continues pacing around the room. A disused bell that hung in the room and communicated for some purpose now forgot with the chamber in the highest story of the building. So he looked at this, saw the bell begin to move. This might have lasted half a minute or a minute, but it seemed an hour. Then the bell ceased as they had begun together.
Yep.
It's humbug still, I won't believe it. His color changed, though, when, without a pause, it came on through the heavy door and passed into the room before his eyes. Upon its coming in, the dying flame leaped up as though it cried, "I know him, Marley's ghost," and fell again. And Scrooge starts to kind of be a little bit convinced, but he still wants to argue with it. Scrooge had often heard it said that Marley had no bowels, but he had never believed it until now. No, nor did he believe it even now. Though he looked the phantom through and through and saw it standing before him, though he felt the chilling influence of its death cold eyes and marked the very texture of the folded kerchief found about its head and chin, which wrapper he had not observed before, he was still incredulous and fought against his senses. "How now?" said Scrooge, caustic and cold as ever. "What do you want with me?" So, even faced with absolute proof that there is the supernatural, that there is an afterlife, that this is, the only person who ever considered him a friend in the past, 20 years, standing before him 7 years after his passing, Scrooge is still going, "Nope, do not believe it, not real."
Yep, and he even proceeds to blame it on something he ate.
Yep, you don't believe in me. I don't. What evidence would you have of my reality beyond that of your senses? I don't know. Why do you doubt your senses? Because a little thing affects them. A slight disorder of the stomach makes them cheat. You may be an undigested bit of beef, a blot of mustard, a crumb of cheese, a fragment of an underdone potato. There is more of gravy than of grave about you, whatever you are. Which is actually quite telling, because Scrooge was not much in the habit of cracking jokes, nor did he feel in his heart by any means waggish then. The truth is that he tried to be smart as a means of distracting his own attention and keeping down his terror, for the specter's voice disturbed the very marrow in his bones. So, this actually could be some decent foreshadowing that Scrooge can change, that Scrooge can be convinced, that the past can change. Sorry. Because even despite the front he's trying to put on right now, Scrooge is deeply unsettled by this occurrence that he can't explain, and even as he's trying to logic his way out of something that logic isn't going to work on, he can't do it. Not completely. He's trying to trick himself. Because Marley is incontrovertible proof that something ain't quite right here.
Yep.
And I do want to talk about Marley's just general appearance.
Alright, run it at me.
I'm trying to find it again. There we go. The same face, the very same. Marley in his pigtail, usual waistcoat, tights, and boots. The tassels on the latter bristling, like his pigtail and his coat skirts and the hair upon his head. The chain he drew was clasped about his middle. It was long and wound around him like a tail, and it was made, for Scrooge observed it closely, of cash boxes, keys, padlocks, ledgers, deeds, and heavy purses wrought in steel. His body was transparent, so that Scrooge, observing him and looking through his waistcoat, could see the 2 buttons on his coat behind. And then, of course, the cloth wrapped around his head, which I often remember seeing in cartoons when characters were ill, and I think was actually meant for, like, mumps. I would have to double-check that, though.
Which, if that is true, would explain why Marley died. See, I always thought it was something to do with his burial, that it was used to, like, hold the mouth of the corpse shut or something. But
I can't remember which episode offhand, or like which specific cartoons, but like, I distinctly remember when I was a kid seeing cloth wrapped around the head for characters that were just sick in bed, and I remember reading somewhere, though gods know where I last read it, but that was something to do with just, I'm sick in bed with mumps and this is helping with the swelling or something.
Makes sense. We can look it up sometime between episodes. It's actually not even
Possibly,
really
yeah.
if we more for our own curiosity. But yeah, so Scrooge proceeds to begin quizzing Marley, trying to find out why he's here. After
Well, more accurately, Marley tries to get Scrooge to start quizzing him. It's
right.
Like, who are you? Ask me who I was. Who were you then? You're very nitpicky for a shade. I was your partner, Jacob Marley. Not to be confused with... I'll stop.
Which I think is more to the point of making Scrooge admit it himself than actually providing Scrooge information, because I think at this point Scrooge has very much determined that he is looking at Marley. It's more to make him say it.
Probably. Yep, and still trying to talk himself out of the idea that there might be something wrong. You see this toothpick, said Scrooge. I do. You are not looking at it, but I see it, notwithstanding. I have but to swallow this and be for the rest of my days persecuted by a legion of goblins, all of my own creation. Humbug, I tell you, humbug. So, Marley says, screw it, lets out a ghostly wail, scares the ever-loving crap out of Scrooge, and finally... Yeah, yeah. Hey, if I could just get everybody to stop ignoring me and pay attention if I have something to say with a ghostly wail, I would do it. I would probably have... I'd probably have people very concerned about that, but we'll deal with that later. But, mercy, dreadful apparition, why do you trouble me? Man of the worldly mind, do you believe in me or not? So we finally get Scrooge to listen, and Marley is finally coming to tell him why he is here, which is literally, I have one chance to try and save you from the fate I currently suffer. I regret everything. Everything I did in life was a horrid mistake, and bruh, you're worse off than I am.
Yep. If I remember correctly, it's something like, the chain I wear, the chain you wear, was as long as the chain I wear when I died. So you had 7 years to make yours worse.
Mm-hmm. And to the point, it's what that chain is made of. You are fettered, tell me why. I wear the chain I forged in life, replied the ghost. I made it link by link, and yard by yard. I girded it on of my own free will, and of my own free will I wore it. Is its pattern strange to you? And as we recall, it is just made of greed. Chains of cash boxes and purses and ledgers and deeds, and this is every time that Marley made a conscious choice in life to prioritize his own wealth over the common good of humanity.
Yep.
And as you might note from everything ever said in pop culture that Scrooge has become an illusion for, as well as what we've mentioned when we were talking about just Scrooge before he encounters the spirits, we saw Scrooge make several of those decisions in that one chapter alone.
Yep.
So every one of those decisions is a link on a chain. Bruh, do you even lift? You're about to.
Not sure why he has a Cyndaquil too. He should have a Totodile.
Because it's Christmas and he wants to keep himself warm.
I mean, that's completely fair.
You can't warm your hands on a Totodile, and if you're trying, I have several concerns. The first of which is the mouth.
I mean, blood is pretty warm.
Please do not advocate warming yourself with blood. There are several more concerns to be raised there. It is required of every man, the ghost returned, that the spirit within him should walk abroad his fellow men and travel far and wide, and if that spirit goes not forth in life, it is condemned to do so after death. It is doomed to wander through the world and witness what it cannot share but might have shared on earth and turned to happiness. So, basically, because Marley in life contributed to the suffering of others, he is now cursed as a ghost. His eternal punishment is to wander the earth forever, seeing the pain and suffering of others, powerless to do anything about it, and knowing full well that was he alive, he would have a lot of power to do something about it.
Yep.
But he now is cursed with the knowledge that he never can again, and he never did. So, he tells us to Scrooge that Scrooge might have a little bit of warning to get his act together, get his chain lessened down a little bit. I'm not sure how much time you got left, buddy. I'm not sure you can get rid of the chain, but maybe you can get it down to a keychain. I don't know.
Yep. And when Scrooge is generally unconvinced, Marley does two things. First, he warns Scrooge, you will be haunted by 3 more spirits. Expect the first when the bell tolls 1. To which, of course, Scrooge is like, well, can't I have them all at the same time and get it over with? And Marley is not having any of that.
Dude, you can't custom order your miracle. This is not Burger King.
But I want to have it my way. I've had it my way all my life.
Then I will deliver unto you a Whopper, Ebenezer Scrooge. And then he thunks him over the head with the chain. He should have, but he didn't.
He
Would have been corporeal anyway.
He mostly just howls at him and freaks him out, which...
I mean, go with what works.
Yeah.
I love how Gorm was the Slowpoke sprites look in this game. It's just like, hi.
The second thing is that when Marley has to leave, for he's very limited on time that he can interact with the living world, he kind of pulls Scrooge over to the window as he's departing. And we mentioned this in a prior episode. When Scrooge is dragged over and looks out the window, he sees all of the other spirits trapped like Marley wandering through the streets and the sky on their endless afterlife journey.
The Tour of Misery.
And sees several faces he recognizes, and how the spirits are stuck, unable to do anything to interact with the world of the living.
Yep. Though, let's backtrack a little bit, though, because, well, he tries to talk himself out of this again, because obviously this can't have... Why are you being punished, Marley? You were always such a good man of business, Jacob, faltered Scrooge, who now began to apply himself. Business? Mankind was my business. The common welfare was my business. Charity, mercy, forbearance, and benevolence were all my business. The dealings of my trade were but a drop of water in the comprehensive ocean of my business. It held its chain at arm's length, as if that were the cause of all its unavailing grief, and flung it heavily upon the ground again. So, yeah, you were good at your job, but what good did that do literally anything in the world? Look at the pain you are an accessory to.
Speaking of greed, here we have Team Rocket stealing presents from Delibird. It's time to save Christmas.
Yay!
So I guess there is a little bit of Christmas story to this.
Well, we'll take it then. Yes, and so Marley has been wandering for 7 years. He's had 7 years since his death to mull over all the failings he has had in his lifestyle, etc., and plenty of experience to come to Scrooge with. And, well, captive, bound in double iron, cried the Phantom, not to know that ages of incessant labor by immortal creatures for this earth must pass into eternity before the good of which it is susceptible is all developed. Not to know that any Christian spirit working kindly in its little sphere, whatever it may be, will find its mortal life too short for its vast means of usefulness. Not to know that no space of regret can make amends for one's life opportunities misused. Yet such was I, oh such was I. I was so short-sighted and self-obsessed, and I let all of this happen on my doorstep, well within my power to fix, to make better, to do something with. And I didn't. I could have, I knew it, and I didn't. Please, Scrooge, you have to change, or you're going to be just as bad as I am. Most definitely worse. Maybe this warning will save you.
Yep. And he's had that 7 years to watch Scrooge do his thing. I imagine that Marley spent a decent chunk of that 7 years of wandering basically following Scrooge around and watching Scrooge as he went about his daily life, continuing on as he's always had.
Yep. How is it that I appear before how is it that I appear before you in a shape you can see? I may not tell. I have sat invisible beside you many and many a day. Scrooge doesn't like this.
That was probably the wrong one.
Yep. Probably. This is no light part of my penance, pursued the ghost. I am here tonight to warn you that you have yet a chance and hope of escaping my fate. A chance and hope of my procuring Ebenezer. You were always a good friend to me, said Scrooge. Thank you. So, God knows what that means, considering Scrooge literally has no other friends in the world, just a very, very loyal nephew who I'm not even sure understands why he keeps trying to invite Scrooge to things, given that Scrooge has done nothing but berate and mistreat him every time he's come by. Like, you really get the impression from that conversation that this is not the first conversation they have had to the effect of, hey, Uncle Scrooge, you want to come over? It is Major Holiday Goes Here.
I actually have a theory on why Scrooge reacts this way to Marley at this point. He calls Marley a good friend because Marley is doing something for him. It's still Scrooge's greed.
I definitely see that.
Yeah, he says, Marley, you're such a good friend to me, because Marley, in all of his ethereal wanderings, and his one chance to interact with the living world, chose to give Scrooge a gift. And Scrooge is like, you are going to give me something? Yes, that makes you a good friend, because I profit from this.
I could definitely see that. I also wonder, like, if Marley went to him because, well, if you're gonna take a shot at something, you might as well go big or go home. And there is definitely the case to be made that of all the people he could go to, Scrooge is in a position to do, if he can get through to him, the most good. Because Scrooge has done nothing but save money for no real reason for the past, 20, 40 something years, Scrooge has a lot of power that, if convinced, he could benefit a lot of people without doing much overall damage to his own net worth. If he decides to say, screw the net worth, I'm old and I have no family to give it to except Freddy, who seems to be doing fine for himself, he could make a lot of people's lives better. So Marley might just be going for the gamble there, but there is also the chance that, legitimately, who else would remember Marley fondly? The impression I've gotten is that Marley and Scrooge were business partners because they were kindred spirits. Both loner misers who wanted nothing to do with people around them and just were here to make all the money they could because you gotta make all the money you could.
I mean,
we know
Marley had no other family, because when it talks about Marley being dead, it points out that Scrooge had to sign all of the post-mortem paperwork. There was no one else in Marley's life to do so.
Yep. So Marley could be here just because, well, he has one chance and he has one person who's actually going to receive him. Like, a lot of people might have been more willing to, it's a ghost, yes, I will be a good person, but would they have been actually people who needed that push as much as someone like Scrooge, who I have been set in my ways for God knows how long, I am right because I say so, and I'm wealthy enough to pay people off, and da-da-da-da-da, if I ever saw the need to part with that much coin. I mean, bribes are expensive. But, Scrooge probably wouldn't have changed without getting a major shock to the system like this. And Marley probably would have been in the same boat. How many people in a similar position to Scrooge can you think of who would suddenly decide, I have done too much harm, I must change my ways and benefit humanity? Or how many do you think would just double down and keep doing what they're doing because it's easier for them?
Yeah. And then Marley departs. He leaves Scrooge with the bizarre vision of all of the other spirits, and Scrooge has another freak out and almost falls out the window in the process. And then he manages to get the window shut and retreats back to his fire, and takes a little time for the panic to wear off. And then
nope, he actually just goes straight back to bed, just I am so tired, I can't process this, and just passes right the heck out.
Yep.
And being from the emotion he had undergone, or the fatigues of the day, or his glimpse of the invisible world, or the dull conversation of the ghost, or the lateness of the hour, much in need of repose, went straight to bed without undressing, and fell asleep upon the instant.
Yep. And then he slept until the bell tolled.
But ask not for whom the bell tolls, because Dickens already said it tolls for thee.
And that's where we'll continue next time, with the arrival of the ghost of Christmas past.
I have been Sense.
And I have been Axion.
And we will see you next time.
Bye!